In this tutorial, we're going to look at how we can make a lose, for example, you lose screen, and that's using collisions. So the example I'm showing you right here, I'm not going to use my camera. I'm just going to, my first person shooter, I'm just going to show you an example. So for example, if I'm here and I hit the monkey, which really fast, it goes to you lost. All right. So how does that work? To start off with, I'm going to divide up my screen as usual, bring up my logic editor, press N, although we'll need N for later on, as you'll see. Okay, so let's just set up a basic scene first. Let's move my cube up a little bit, expand this, change it to Blender Game. Again, expand it so I see my physics, change it to character, which we don't have to worry too much about right now, but don't forget. I'm going to make sure my 3D cursor is at 0 so that when I do Shift A, oops, make sure I deselect, Shift A, add my plane, press S, 30, move my cube a little further up, my bad, deselect, select my cube, move him a little bit up. Okay, we'll add the monkey later. So right now you notice up here it says scene. I'm just going to change the name to, for example, scene game. I'm going to add a new scene. Okay, and you'll notice there's a lot of different options here. I can totally copy and duplicate a scene if I want. Okay, and there's a few other ones I'm not too sure what they do. But for now, I'm just going to do a new scene. And this one I'm going to call, for example, scene lost. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you name it. But notice this, it does not have a camera. So my first step I want to do is, if I go to my side view, press 1, or front view, press 5, I'm going to go for my right view. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to move this further up here, my 3D cursor, and do Shift A and add a camera. Now, Alt R will make it face down. So if I press 0 now, okay, this is what it looks like. I want it to be a bit bigger. So if I go to my camera on the right side here, first of all, I want it kind of like a 2D. I don't want perspective. I want kind of like a 2D look. So I'm going to go to ortho. And if I change my view back to 3 and zoom out a little bit, if I change my scale, notice that, see it's orthographic scale right here, my camera goes bigger. So now if I move this up a bit and I go to 0 again, notice that there's more squares being shown. Okay, so I have a bigger place to write. Okay, so I've got my camera organized. This should all be pretty simple for you guys. I'm going to add text. So Shift A, text. And to edit it, I'm going to press Tab, type U, lost, exclamation, exclamation. Tab to get out, S to scale it for as big as I want it to be. Okay. Now, to see how it looks, I got to go to Blender Game. Okay, I got to make sure I'm in my game again. I press P. Okay, and this is how it looks. So I'm not exactly happy where it's standing. Move it to the right a bit. Okay, a little bit more maybe. Now to add color, the first thing you have to do is change it from text to cursor. So if you do Alt C and your second option, mesh from curve, okay? And now go to your materials tab and let me just add a color, say a red, for example. Okay, you might want to reduce the intensity a little bit. It's really up to you how you want to play with it. To be darker, okay. Maybe shadeless. Totally up to you how you want it to look. So now it is red. But without holding Alt C first, it is not going to work. All right, so there's my lost scene done. Nothing too, obviously you can make it more exciting, right? You could add animation or whatever else that you want. Going back to my game, okay, I know I'm not really showing you an example with the first person shooter, just because we're focusing on the collisions. So I am going to move my 3D, I'm going to go to my side view here, I'll move my cursor a bit here, do Shift A, And I'm just going to add the monkey. Okay, and make sure it's above the plane. Maybe rotate it a little bit, scale it. Okay. Now this next part matters. So there's two ways to set collisions. One, through a material, which we'll name. So for example, we call the material red. We'll say cube. If cube collides with red, then go to the next scene. Another way to do it is with properties, which we will name this a property. So what, and then if it hits that property, which I'll show you in a second. So why choose one over the other? For example, if every single of your enemies is going to be red and the same color, then a material makes sense. However, if you're going to have multiple different kind of enemies, okay, that all kill you in the first shot, then property will make sense. So let's pretend for right now all our enemies will be the same color. So step one, we add a color. So let's make it red, for example. Okay. And here under material, I'm going to call it bad red. Whoops. BAD red. Now it's really important that you memorize or you spell it exactly the way that you want in order to collide. So I got my monkey. I go back to my cube. So first thing I have to do, I have to make it move, right? So I'm going to go to my local view here. So I want to make it move Y. If I go, make sure it's lined up here. If I go to top, yes. If I go along my Y axis, okay, it will collide with the monkey. So add a keyboard. I'm just going to press the key W, for example, and that's going to be a motion. It's going to be a character motion, don't forget. Okay, along the Y-axis of 0.5. Okay, it's local, it's checked off. Okay, and as I should always do, double check. If I press P and press W, okay. All right, so it works. Great, it's moving. Now, moving this over a little bit. So now I can close this off. Now to set up your collision. All right, now to add your collision. So I'm going to add a sensor, and it's going to be called collision. Okay. Now see it says properties down here. I was talking about properties. For now, we're going to be clicking on this one and say material. If I click on this, it's going to find that bad red that we had named the monkey. So what do I want it to do? I want it to change the scene when it hits it. So I'm going to go to scene. Okay. And I am going to set scene to scene lost. All right, so what does this all mean? When a collision occurs with the bad red material, set the scene to scene lost. So if I press P now and W, it hit it, okay, and it worked. Now, you notice that the monkey was just fine, and bad red, perfect. Now, what happens if I have different colored monkeys, okay, and I want to not make it with the material? So first of all, I'm going to put N, and I'm going to add a property. So the property I want is an integer, okay, and I also want to name it something. So I'll call it bad guy this time, for example. Okay, so now my property is bad guy. So anybody that has a property called bad guy, okay, so if I go back to here, I can press N to get rid of this, this is going to change. Instead of material, I'm just going to type in the property bad guy. All right, so both ways work. If I press P and W, I lost as well. So you got two different ways to do it depending on what you want. Show me an example with both, hand it into your pre-made models, and then move on to 20% time.